Shviras Haluchos. Why is Mrs. Saharan close to Shviras Haluchos? Lamdach Shemisas Tzadikim kosher lifnei amokim keshviras haluchos. Misas Tzadikim is hard for the Ribono Shlom, just like Shviras Haluchos. Aaron HaKoyen, with the Zokum Mufleg, when he was Nifter. So you would think, when an old person departs from this world, the Tsar is less. The vacuum is not felt so much. The Avelis is not as great. Torah is telling you, Shviras Haluchos, the tremendous simcha that Klal Yisrael had when Moshe Rabbeinu brought down the Luchos, uncomparable simcha. And then you can imagine the tremendous, terrible tsar, not to elaborate, when Moshe Rabbeinu broke the Luchos. Chazal are comparing, even the Aaron HaKoyen with the Zokum Mufleg, but the Tsar, the pain, the Aveles, was just as big as Shviras Haluchos. Blozer Olav HaSholem, which I have known, my father was close to him for many, many decades. Our families are very, very close for many decades. And even though he was a Zokim Mufleg, but the Aveda is very great. The loss is very great. Some tell us that Noach lived before the Mabul, during the Mabul, and after the Mabul. The Blozer lived before the Churban of Europe. He saw the four Medoiros. He saw the Tzadikim. He learned by great Gedolim and Tzadikim of before the war. He learned by Galante Rov, Zechet Tzadi v'Kodesh Livrocho. He learned by the Ungvare Rov, Yosef Elimelech Kahane, who it happened to be that my father also learned by him. Odom Godel Me'oi, the great Tzaddik. And he saw, in Einikro de Chsam Soifer, Galante Rov, Berek Saze Rov, all these Gedolim he has learned from. He was koine from them. He talked about them. When Yaakov Avinu came to Mitzrayim, Ves Yehuda Sholach Lefon of Goishno, he sent Yehuda to make a yeshiva. Sat Merov Zetzal asked, why did he have to send Yehuda? Yosef Atzadik was there. So Sat Merov answered, Yosef Atzadik was in Mitzrayim for many years. But Yehuda just came from Eretz Yisrael. He just came from the Shvatim. He brought back the koyach of the Shvatim, the kedusha from the Shvatim, the kedusha from the Alte Heim. Rebbe Lozo, by him leaving us, it's not a yochid. It's kimat leaving a whole doyer. He was from the Sheris HaPleito, from the Zkenim, who still were raised in der Alter Heim, mit die Kedusche von der Alter Heim, mit die gewaltige, gewöhnliche Ausgearbeitenkeit in Midas, that he brought into this shore, that he brought from der Alter Heim. from his parents and grandparents. It's something that we need so much to learn from. He left us right before Rosh Hashanah. The Hesped is Erev Rosh Hashanah. It's a man of tshuves, man of kapores, man of isoireres. A Zeit when we have to improve ourselves. We have to be meshaper ourselves. We have to be mechadesh maaseinu. And the Eibishter sent us a tremendous isoireres with the ptiri of this great person, of this Taira Neshama. Talk about a few things that we have to be mesaken Erev Rosh Hashanah. And through being maspid such an Odom, it's me'oireras in these things. Chazal tell us, Chalamavir al midoisov, ma'amirim v'menu al kol pishov. Someone is ma'avir al midoisov. Someone gives in on whatever tightness he has. And whoever maybe heard him or maybe did something. Rebbe Lozer la Sholom firdain in his stub that you don't speak about anybody. He never found a tiny against anybody. He was a mavir al midoisov in the hechste madrege. He's an hoge mavir al midoisov. Is a echte isoireres a musse shmuz. Erev Rosh Hashanah. You never heard in his house criticism, let alone about Talmidei Chachomim, about Gedolei HaTorah, but about anybody. This is the way he raised his family. Atem nitzovim hayom kulchem, the Zohar says, it refers to Rosh Hashanah. Kulchem. Rosh Hashanah is mechaper, if Klal Yisrael is kulchem, is together, is be'achdus. Kol ha-merachem al abriya is merach min olov min hashamayim. The unbelievable house of chesed that the Neuman family created and led is uncomparable. In different ways. Either was a chesed for the rabbim, a chesed for yechidim. They did everything what they could. Nothing was too hard for them. Nothing was too hard for Reb Lozer to be mekayeh midas ha-chesed and midas ha-rachmim to the highest level. How many people were helped? Yechidim, families, they took into their house, which they needed it so much, and they helped them. It was mezakes harabim. Kol ha-mezakes harabim v'chet bo al yodo. After the war, the blood did so much chesed. Beruchnies u begashmies. He was mechazek when it was so necessary after the churban in Europe to be mechazek. He was a bocher yet, but he was mechazek everybody. He himself gave shiurim. He instituted minyanim. He brought Yiddishkeit into those lost neshamas. Chazal tell us, lo motoy kinumerim keshen yoishvin, v'toy kinumerim keshen oimdim, kedel arve v'sasotem. The koyach to destroy a soten, to be zoiche bedin, and that's how he'll be zoiche bedin now, is to be arve v'sasotem. How do you make arve v'sasotem? By blowing again So Rashi and the Rach say, you show how you mechavev the mitzvahs, how dear you hold the mitzvahs. Reb Lozo, Olav Sholom, he was Moser Nefesh in the times of the war. He was Moser Nefesh not to eat tafes, with a tremendous, outstanding Mesiras Nefesh, whether it was a whole year or whether it was Pesach, not to eat chometz, which was connected with an unbelievable Mesiras Nefesh. Das is Chibuv HaMitzvahs. Tkiya is Take Chibuv HaMitzvahs. Aber Mesiras Nefesh, not to eat treif, not to eat chometz. Mesiras Nefesh, to put on tefillin every day in those times. This is what the Lozo was. And this is what he instilled in his children. He came to these shores. He was Moser Nefesh, Chas v'Sholem, not to be Mechal Shabbos, which, as you know, at those time it was a tremendous Mesiras Nefesh for Parnosa. But this is what he lived. He lived with Mesiras Nefesh, for Chavives HaToire, Chavives HaMitzvahs, Chavives HaShabbos. Shabbos is a tremendous chus or kapore. Reb Chaskel says, Chazal tell us, Ilu Shomru Yisroel Shtei Shabboses Miyat Nigolin. If Shabbos brings a gule for ganz Klal Yisrael, so for sure Shabbos brings a geule to be done lekaves chus yochid. And therefore he talks so strongly, Hayidin have to be medagdek to keep Shabbos Shuva, the last Shabbos before Yom Kippur, in order to be Oimed Bedin. Such a neshama leaves us, and all these koiches, all these greatness, Ben Odom Lamokim and Ben Odom Lachaveiroi, he instilled in his children. He came to these shores after he lost his family in Europe, and he built a beautiful family, children and Einichlich, Bnei Teure, Talmidei Chachomim, and they were koine his outstanding askones, which he was Moser Nefesh for here and in Europe and in the Lager and weiter. It's a tremendous Aveda. But we have to learn from somebody who brought with him this tremendous richness and treasury, instilled it in his children. Talmidei Chachomim, gewaltige Bale, Askonim, are continuing in his passage, in his derech. Should be a Melis Yoshe. Hashem took you way before Rosh Hashanah with all these tremendous chusim to be a Melis Yoshe for Klal Yisrael, which needs so much. Yishom Aleolam dai, Yoim Alesoiseinu dai, Bila Amoves lo netzach, Umocha Hashem Eloikim dimo me'al kol ponim.
David Neuman.
De kranken mishpucha is weg. Mit wem man geht man durchreden Sachen. Wem man geht man zu pflegen Eitzes. Und wem man geht man zu verchizik. Und wem man geht man verbruches. De Tatul was schon gegeben bruches jeden Tag. Wenn gefragt von mishpucha geht mich bruches für jeden einen. Kuperachim, darfst du geben Kuperachim jetzt. Chaim hat mich gegeben Kuperachim. Wie soll ich kann geben Kuperachim jetzt? He lived the life of Torah all his life. Never swayed from it. It's from the Sheris HaPleita, and when he was throughout his life, he always lived it 100% according to the Torah. He imbued on us the Torah and never did anything without das Torah. In following the Torah, he also said, you know, followed it. He told it to us 3 weeks after my mother all of a sudden passed away. He told it to us that I followed the Torah all my life. I'm not going to change. And that's what he did. What did he do? He died Erev Shabbos. Erev Shabbos he passed away. Makes me an Einan. We're all Einans. What can we do? Shabbos comes, I can't learn. As I is it. He gave us, taught us, even after Chaim, he's teaching us by example like he did during the life. What did he teach us? This Shabbos he taught us restraint. Restraint, that we wanted to keep Shabbos and do mitzvahs that we couldn't keep and we couldn't perform. I know I have to go speak tonight. I have to prepare. What am I going to say? I'm allowed to look into the Sefer to look for something to say. He learned with the children and grandchildren every Sunday night for years, until my mother got very sick and they couldn't do it anymore. What did he learn? He started off learning Pelayos. Pelayos is what his Melamed taught him. He introduced us to a Sefer, a Musar Sefer, a beautiful Musar Sefer that's short and sweet, Pelayos. So here I want to talk about his life. So you take us Aleph, and knowing my father, he didn't want me to say it, and I forgot to settle at home the copy of the index from the Pelayos. But if you go under Us Aleph, you're going to find my father described straight across from everything under Us Aleph. Starting with the first thing, a Havas, I think it's a Havas Kitchabrichu is what it says over there. That's the first one. You have a Havas Torah, you have Havas Re'im, everything, all different Havas and all different types of Vedas is what you have over there. That describes my father, Olav Shalom. He rebuilt his life here. And again, he lived it according to the Torah. He didn't sway from it. He learned all the time. You walked into his house, there's always a sefer on his house. I thank those chavrusas that he had publicly now, and the last few years who came to him on a daily basis to learn with him twice a day. I thank them. He always had a sefer and is always learning something, whether it's in the morning, whether it's nighttime. He went to shul. Later years he couldn't go to shul in the morning, but he went to shul whenever he could. He was always went to all the minyanim. I'd like to speak more, but I just don't know what to say. He was the strength behind the family. To me, he was different because he helped me. And I followed his trade, and so it was a different relationship with him. But it's very difficult. Tati. Za'ameli Church for the ganze Mishpucha, for these was there from the Fias and Yeshias. The Klal in Cleveland, ganz Klal Yisrael. And like you said many times, you said Mashiach is coming. It's already time for Mashiach to come. Zaya Beter, Mizal Zain, Mekalba Mashiach Tzidkenu B'mher Yimenu, Bila Mavas Netzach, V'mocha Hashem Dima Me'al Kalponim.
Reb Moshe Neuman.
Mein teure Brüder, der Fiedele spielt schon mehr nicht. Libi Shavar, oi Tate Süße, Libi Shavar. Tate, dein teure und süße Dvorim shall teure hört man schon nicht. Oi Tate, dein teure Chosheve, in ausgerechnet Chachmas Dvorim haben sich abgerät. Oi Tate, dein teure kliege Meinungen haben sich verstellt. Tati, your brilliant and calculated insight in all of life's situations are now only a memory. David HaMelech, in his opening words in Sefer Tehillim, writes, Ashrei ho'ish asher lo halach b'atzas Roshoim. The praises of a man that he had not walked in the counsel of the wicked, U'v'derech hatoim lo amod, U'v'moishav leitzim lo yoshav, and did not stand in the path of the sinful, nor did he sit in the sessions of the scorners. Ki im b'sorosai Hashem cheftzoi, v'sorosai yehege yomam v'loilo. But his desire is in the Torah of Hashem. In the Torah he meditates day and night. And David HaMelech concludes this kapitel, Ki yodeya Hashem derech tzadikim, for Hashem recognizes the ways of his righteous. That is just a small picture of what my father really was. I need to be makir to the Rebbeinu Shleilim and give Shevach v'Adoy El Hashem for giving me the opportunity to fulfill the mitzvah Shel Kibud Av, especially during these past few years and days. As I look around many of my friends and contemporaries, I recognize we're not as zeichut to be as fortunate for as long as I have been. My father also told me time in and time again, so many times, how fortunate he was to live a long life, far greater than he ever expected. A special akoros atayv to my dear brothers and sister-in-laws for your help regularly. To you, David and Judy, Shiu and Malki, Binyamin and Sarah, Arya and Simi. Words cannot express my appreciation for allowing me the privilege and supporting me in caring for Tati. Dai lachakimo bermiza. To Zahava, my special wife, I can't say enough for your support, your encouragement, assistance. You took such good care of Tati, and a very special thank you, me'imka delibe, and especially for opening our home to Tati. I could have not done it without you. To each of my father's respective medical teams, caregivers, to all of his chavrusas who came to learn with him on a regular basis, and to everyone who visited my father's Zechrono Livrocha, especially for those that came more regularly. Many came on Sundays when time permitted. My father always shared with me how much it meant to him, and he used to boast about the fact when I picked him up every day from Mincha Marav, do you know who came to see me today? And he felt so good about it. Please accept my hakaras hatov, my personal thanks, not only on behalf of myself, but on behalf of the family. I'm a bit reluctant to mention individual names in case I inadvertently omit someone. V'hamei v'nyovin. But I have to give a special thanks to two individuals. A special thank you to Dr. Jonathan Klarfeld, to Dr. Elliot Dickman. Words cannot express the family's hakaras hatov. My father used to tell me how proud he was when he went to shul. He says, I have the best of both worlds. I have a shul that I enjoy, and I have my two doctors at my side. He says, I have nothing to worry, even though he was schwach at times, but my two doctors were at side. The Torah in Bereshis Chav Gimel states, V'Tomas Sora Bekiryas Arba, Hi Chevron Be'eretz Canaan, V'Yova Avram Lispait Sora V'Lichvaisai. And Avram came to be Maspid Sora. The Navi continues and tells us in a different place. V'Hi Achrei Ma'ishael, and when David HaMelech heard what happened, the Pasuk states, V'Yispedu, V'Yivku, Vayotzumu ad ha'orv al Shaul v'al Yonasan b'nai. Shaul was the Nasi, Yonasan was the Av Bezdin. And the tour in Yerodea Simin Shin Donald Mem says, Mitzvah gedoyle lahaspid al meis karoyu v'chol ha-mishatzel b'ispeidai shel Adam einoi marich yomim v'ror l'kroivoi b'chayov. In the Parisha, on the Gemara in Shabbos Kuf Hey, quotes that this is because mido keneged mido. The Gemara continues and says, Omer Rab Shimon ben Pazi, Omer Rab Yeshua ben Levi Mishum Kaporo, Kol Hamori Damaz Al Odom Kosher, anyone who sheds tears for an upright person. HaKadosh Baruch Hu Seifron Umenichon Beves Genozov. Hashem then counts and places them in his storehouse. Yerushalmi in Perek Daled in Ksubis, Seif Halacha Vav says, Tani kol hamokim shenehegu lehespid matzpidim, and quotes this Tosefta there. And the Rambam as well in Shoftim, in Hilchas Oval, Perek Yud Gimel says, and the Beis Yosef as well, in Yerodei Simin Shin Tzadik Dalet Sivov, makes a very profound statement in Paskins, Kol mi she'eina misabel, k'may she'tzivur chachomim harei ze achzori. The Kesef Mishnah and the Rambam makes quotes and makes a statement by quoting the Gemara in Shabbos Kuvov that this type of punishment of Achzori describes the punishment of a cruel person. So not only does one has to be careful on what you say about a living person, such as Lashon Hara, but the dangers if you err by making a hesped as well. How careful you have to be for a department. So saying a hesped can spawn the lack of dignity to a nifter, and at the same time, somewhat a risk to the maspidim. So I ask myself, I know that I have a halachic obligation, and maybe even more so as a bechor. But what can I do? How can I say it? Tati, over the years we virtually spoke about almost anything, including many of your bakoshas. I asked you many questions to which you responded accordingly. But one thing we never discussed was hespedim. You never raised the issue. I never asked. Had I asked, knowing the character of my father, there would be no doubt in my mind that he would have definitely said no. But I didn't ask. So please be Michael Mitati if I unintentionally chose words that may not be befitting. What can I say? How do I say it? And where do I start? Life before the war, during the war, in labor camps, or the 6 months in the Russian POW, or the end of the war in the DP camps in Germany, or his non-negotiable desire to settle in Eretz Yisrael post-war, or his life accomplishments in the United States. He wanted so badly to go move to Eretz Yisrael that from the DP camps he sent all of his belongings to Eretz Yisrael, but never made it there because the 48 war made it difficult for him to get to Eretz Yisrael. He sent his surviving sister and his surviving brother there in 1946, but he never made it there. My father's impeccable character and life endeavor are beyond descriptions. Like a silent hero and a leader, Tati, you are not only my hero and leader, not only the family's hero and leader, but a leader in every community that you lived. You were a silent giant, from a secretary of the DP camp where he was responsible for everything in Winsheim, Germany, or when he first came to America and he needed a cheder for his children, he was the gizber of the Kalaver cheder, or later on when he undertook other communal responsibilities, when he became the president of a shul, and he was always the life partner of my mother when it came to Bikur Chayla. If the skies were all parchment, Kinei kol churshasa, and all the forest reeds were quills, the yoy ilu yamei, and all the waters were ink, would not portray his life accomplishments. Please indulge me as I share with you and my family a very small glimpse of some highlights of this journey. My father grew up in the city of Berkowitz, learned in the yeshiva of Berkowitz, the Berkowitz Rav Osher Steinmetz, and then later went to Ungvar, where he learned under Rabbi Yosef Elimelech Kahana, and followed that by going to the yeshiva in Galanta as a chazer bocher, where he helped the younger bocherim get a start in the yeshiva. And he always told me, he said, all you had to do in Galanta was one time listen to the Psuke de Zimmer of Harav Yeshia Buxbaum Zecher Tzadik Levrocha, when he davened for the Amid, that Psuke de Zimmer in the weekday was with more Hislavos than the Hislavos that we daven on Yom Kippur. And he had the opportunity to learn there a half a year to be yoinik from this great tzaddik. That's what made him who he was. My father's great-grandfather, Reb Amram Yitzchak Friedman, was a tremendous Talmid Chacham, a wealthy businessman. He owned a big flour mill. He had 5 daughters, but he had no sons. He and his wife decided that he should go to his Rebbe and ask for a bracha so that he should have sons. He went to his Rebbe, and his Rebbe told him, he says, "You have everything." And he says, "What do you mean I have everything?" He said, "You have a wonderful family. You're a successful businessman. You're a big Talmid Chacham." He says, "No, I don't have sons." So his Rebbe told him, he says, "You can't have sons and wealth, one or the other." He came back home and he explained to his wife what the Rebbe told him. And the two of them decided that they're willing to give up their wealth if they can have 2 sons. And so it was. Shortly thereafter, there was a tremendous fire, and the flour mill burned down. He lost everything. And then he had 2 sons. The older son, the first son that he had, was Reb Mordechai Friedman. Reb Mordechai Friedman, at a younger age, moved to Eretz Yisrael and became the mechutner of Reb Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld. This younger son, Reb Aaron Friedman, was his grandfather, his mother's father. He was the first grandson to be bar mitzvahed after the ptir of his grandfather, and they gave him his grandfather's tefillin. Mind you that Reb Aaron Friedman was a Merchas Sforim in Berkowitz. So the quality of the parshias were better than the average person because he had the ability to seek out something. Those tefillin he took with him through the entire war, through the labor camps, and he put on tefillin every single day except for 2 when he told me he was potter midiraisa. The entire war, labor camps, POWs, all the challenges, my father put on tefillin every single day. And those tefillin survived the war. And in the schus of Hanochas tefillin, we have those tefillin today. During the period of internment in labor camp, he experienced several Allied direct bombing hits that hit the labor regiment. In spite of these traumatic events, he kept a handwritten list of the names of the Kedoshim that he buried so that he could be made on their demise. He kept this list to this very day. I've seen it many a times. There were 18 names on that list. And 40 years later, he went back to Hungary to put up a mitzvah for these Kedoshim that he buried. My father embraced an unusual emunas Hashem. He lived every day, every hour, every minute with the pasuk, Shomer Hashem es kol ha'havov ve'es kol ha'rashom yashmid. Hashem protects all those that love him, but all the wicked he will destroy. One of his close chaverim and himself kept kosher. As Rav Blum mentioned, he was Nizrim and Michael Trefus. The group always referred to this pair as the kosher ones. But once again, no compromises on emunas v'yiras Hashem. While in the Russian POW camp, my father had no access to water, and he needed negelwasser because the mitzvah of Netilas Yadayim was so important to him, or just like any other mitzvah. But this was a simple, easy mitzvah that many people are not nizer as much. But every single mitzvah, every bracha that he made meant so much to him. He saved half of his coffee ration for Netilas Yadayim. He gave up from his physical well-being to do a mitzvah. Once again, emunas Hashem. Several years back, my father had open heart surgery, a triple bypass. He was reluctant, he was nervous to have it. We encouraged him, and he says, well, you don't have to encourage me. The Torah tells us, "V'shmartem es nafsheseichem." I have an obligation. I have to do it. I have to take care of myself. So he went through the surgery. Post-op, he refused to take medications, pain medications, because they altered his medical his mental capabilities. The heavy medications didn't allow him to think the way he should have. And he refused to take the medication. And while he was in a hospital bed, just coming out of the ICU, he told me, he says, "Moshe, sing with me a nigun." And I sang one nigun, a second nigun, a third nigun. And after we finished, he says, "Oh, Moshe, Moshe, that felt so good. My pain went away." The nigun took him to a new high of Amunas Hashem. Came to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu then took his physical state out and put him a complete spiritual state. He had that Yochayus. I've always tried to figure it out, and I was not successful. Over the last several years, I took my father to many medical appointments. He's always told me, "You speak to the doctor and then explain it to me later." Last year, he was diagnosed with colon cancer. I was faced with a very overwhelming and challenging task. I put on a smile, always trying to help him think in a positive way, and encouraged by always trying to give him Amunas Hashem, while simultaneously covering up my broken heart that was molei demos, full of tears. One cannot fathom this type of a challenge, being in the front line in the battlefield of medical prognosis, along with the pessimism of some hospital practitioners who painted a very different picture, to which I always redrew with the same picture, with the brush stroke of Amunas Hashem, Tzahaloisa Bafonov. I got my chizuk to embrace this Amunah from the Chovos Halvavos in Shara Precious. Kasher Omar K'tzas Chasidim Hapor Tzahaloisa Bafonov Ve'evloi Beliboy. An individual is in a cheerful expression with a troubled heart. Liboy Rochov Ma'od V'nafshei Shfolo Ma'od. And the Pischei Leiv comments on this, Kedei Sheyakabel Odom B'Sefer Ponim Yofas. Regardless of one's challenges, regardless of one's pain, regardless of one's difficulty, a Yid must always be Tzaloisa B'Fonov with a cheerful expression. Tati, you always told me you have no pain. While I really believe that you indeed did, and you only told that to us because you didn't want us children to suffer with you. My father's Amunah was indestructible. The war, nor his illnesses, nor his life's challenges couldn't weaken it. The Ponevezher Rav once said the following word: when we say Yehirotzain in the Birchas HaChodesh, we ask for long life, livelihood, and so forth. The Rav posed a question. Since we say in this tefillah every month and continually ask for the same things, why do we currently ask for Chaim Aruchim? The duration of the month is not a lifelong, it's only 30 days, but yet we still ask for Chaim Aruchim. The Rav gave the following response. He says, we ask for length, not for length and quantity, but rather quality. Each day, each month should be fulfilled with mitzvahs and chesed, and for this lifelong, we ask our bakoshes and we daven. And maybe with this we can explain the pasuk in Achrimais that one carries out Hashem's percepts from Chai B'Odom. One truly lives the life of high quality. Rashi explains V'chai B'Odom also refers to the world to come. The purpose of these mitzvahs are to earn the world to come. Tati, you have earned your place in the world to come. Rab Shimon Aimer Shloshik Sorm Hem Keser Torah Keser Kahuna V'Keser Malchus V'Keser Shem Tov Oila Al Gabeim. The crown of a good name surpasses them all. And indeed, Tati, you wore that crown. Keser Shem Tov. My parents Aleim HaShalom, not only had 5 sons, but they had 5 daughters, no daughter-in-laws. They loved each one individually and equally. Their children, their grandchildren, and great-grandchildren, and there are too many for me to keep track of. Baruch Hashem. We can learn a tremendous lesson on how my father was mechabed my mother, especially when he cared for her in the last difficult period of her life. A phenomenal lesson, one that I couldn't write about. My father never boasted about the fact, but I always wondered what helped make his character. My father was a nechad of the Baal Levushim, or Mordechai Yafa, the Masas Binyamin, the Baal Gimze Yosef, or Yosef Bloch. His great-great-grandmother was the Zivik Sheni of Rabazakal Kaliver. His grandfather was a first cousin of the Kol Arya. I said, somewhere along the line, all of these things had made a Roshem. That's what he came to protect. That's what he wanted to continue with, because he says, I have to set the image. Tati, I would like to ask you, Mechila, I truly tried very hard to do whatever I could. And sometimes I wonder if I did enough. But during the times that during the difficult times you had, you tried to protect me and didn't want me to assist you so many times. But I was persistent, and I hope that you're meichel me if at any time there was a compromise in your covet. If there was a compromise in the covet that anybody in my family gave you, we really tried hard. Leich b'shalom, when you meet up with Mommy, Leich shalom, please tell her that I fulfilled my promise to her in taking care of you. We will not forget you, what you taught us, and we'll try to follow in your footsteps. Please be a male yosher for your children, for your grandchildren, for your great-grandchildren, and for Gans Klal Yisrael. Now is the time when the Rachman Shemayim listen with a bigger ear. Please convey Dai Tzorasenu. I would like to conclude with the same expression of Bakosha that is written in the Hagdoma L'Kuntrise Chaim V'Sholom and Shmer Sholom, that can be found in the end of the second Chelik in Yerodeo. And the Mechaber writes as follows: HaMechaber Asher Belev Nishba. This author with a broken heart. Gilyon lezecher olam eich tishatev alei ruche leispale lifnei Hashem Yisborach adoin han shamos. Zichrono elokei letoivo es nishmas ovi moiri harav achosid yehirotzoin meilas ilo sheyiftach loi shari ganeden v'nishmosoi tehei yitzroi b'tzroi rechayim. And in the words of Yeshaya Novi, Bila hamovas lenetzach u'mocha al Hashem elokim dimo mi al kolponim.
Rabbi Yoshua Neuman. During the war, you were marching to the cemetery midst. We, us boys, didn't know what you went through to get him. He sent us to college yeshiva only a few years after the war. He wanted to follow the Messiah. How I remember Shabbos afternoons. We didn't know how hard you worked. We didn't know what it meant to work hard. We didn't know what it meant that you didn't even know the language of the country. You struggled. And you'd sit down with us Shabbos afternoon, be marvelous surgery of us, moistures over the night, and learn to speak of us. And you always had a prize for us if we knew it. chesed in the house. There was no fanfare. I remember when I'd come home from yeshiva, I would help mommy out. It was a normal, accepted thing. A stranger was family. They weren't strangers. And now, at times, on our way to work, you would drop off food at the hospitals. It was just a double push. Over the years, we got to know what happened. And you shared with us many, many stories. And as of lately, since mommy passed away, we visited you much more often. And we spent many, many hours together, one-on-one. And you shared with us stories which we never knew before. The time is late, and I can't even share. Moshe mentioned a lot of them. And how many times you said, it's a shine sight for Mashiach. A couple of weeks ago you cried after I showed you some pictures. And you said, Mommy reached her tafkid. I didn't yet. Erev Shabbos, Tate, you reached your tafkid. You left over a bear for Klal Yisrael and Rebbeinu Shalom. Please be a Meilach Yosha for the family and Gans Klal Yisrael. Now, especially Erev Rosh Hashanah, Tein Nafshe Tzura B'Tzor HaChaim.
Rebbe Fall Area Neuman.
Tati, wer hat geholmt? Who would have dreamed? Last week, Rebbe Yamanar was making reservations to come to Cleveland. We weren't sure how he should, when he comes, how he's going to tell you that why he came to visit, that you shouldn't get gestert all of a sudden that we're coming to visit. Sunday, I still talk to you. Tuesday, you went to the hospital the whole week. I'm declared. We were thinking, should we drive in? What reservations are available? Then you called me Thursday night that maybe you're going to be in the hospice. I should come and stay for Shabbos. I came. I arrived at 1 o'clock at the airport. Shiu picked me up. I came to the hospice. Tati, I came into you. And 2 minutes after I left the room, Tati was over. Tati, thank you for waiting for me. By the Milchama, there was a story that happened by the Milchama when the Allies were closing in. So the Hungarians, the Germans, were moving the forced labor camps towards Germany, and you came to a new section. They were marching you, and you came to a new area. And it was a big area, and you wanted a place to sleep. You and your chaver wanted to have a place to be able to go sleep. So you went into a place that was already full of people. And you told that, and they told you, we don't have room for you. There's no room for you. And so your chaver went to stay there, pushed himself in, and you said, okay, you don't want me, I'll find somewhere else. You went under a stairwell in pouring rain. That's where you slept. The next morning you heard there's a place. You could have exchanged a pair of gloves that you had for some bread. So you wanted to go change. So you were going to go to that same place where you would have slept the night before to get some bread. On the way you realized you didn't wash Negelwasser. So you went to wash Negelwasser. And then you went back to that building to be able to enter. When you were near the door, the Allies were bombing the enemy territory. They bombed that building. No one survived. But Tati, you taught us it's okay to stay on the sidelines. We don't always have to ship our way in. You taught us the importance of Negelwasser. But you also taught us when it came to after the Milchama, when it came to Mechazik people, when it came in DP camp to create a kosher kitchen, Tati, you were the people behind it. When it came to the Aguda, you were from the people behind it. When it came to the Kalav Chayda, you were the people behind it. When you moved to the new neighborhood and we had a small shul and they needed a Baal Tefillah, you were the Baal Tefillah Yom Noraim. When they needed a Baal Tekeh, you were Baal Tekeh Yom Noraim. You taught us b'malkam she'ani shistahda li'aisish. From the greatest enjoyments that you had was when you would come with the Einekluch, would come over the ear Einekluch. You would draw pictures of the Aleph Beis, and you would check to see if they knew the Aleph Beis. You did this when they were very young. You even did it over Skype. Sometimes you would draw the picture and lift it up. They should be able to buy America if they knew the Aleph Beis or not. And when you were by us last week, 5 weeks ago, you were by us. And when you were by us in the ear Einekluch came, Tati, you also drew pictures. You also made the alphabets for them to see if they know it. And I saved those pictures. I saved those drawings. The Chasadim that came out was Aroskagos and Resoskim and Aroskagos in their holes is given so much, and it was so natural, as was everyone, my brothers mentioned before. It was natural. We grew up, it was natural you have extra people in the house. It was natural you have people coming to stay by you. And anything that you did, some of the ideas of the Chasadim came from Mami, some of the ideas of Chasadim came from you, but it was everything that you did was in unison. You supported each other, Bilev, Malay, totally. All the Chasadim that came was B'shutvis, every last one of them. And Amistik gesucht that the Hachnasas Orchim also started in DP camps. I remember hearing of at least one person that you used to invite to your house, one person that didn't have family, and she didn't want to go anywhere because she didn't really, she didn't want to impose on anyone, and you came up that you were really family, that she should be able to come eat by you. But if in my house I have today, Tati, you gave me one of the suitcases, one of the trunks that you came to America with. I say over by Mami, it's appropriate to say here too, Hasan Kimin kan Amerika mit zwei Renzach geisach mit zig geisach Eilam Habal mit Renzach ungefüllt mit Teire Gemilas Chasadim. Amistik is that there are no words that we have to say to be able to thank Moshe and Zahava for everything that they did. We live far away, and we couldn't be there, and we tried to do what we could, but Moshe and Zahava, the credit goes to you for everything that you did, that you went beyond the call. Not only to Moshe and Zahava, Shua, Malki, David, and Judah, you really did what you can. And all the neighbors and all the chavrusas that came, it was a chizuk. It was a chizuk for my father, and it was a chizuk for us to know other people were there to help. Special, I really have to thank Shiu for suggesting I should come and pick me up from the airport, and David for offering to pick me up. Tati, you always gave us chizuk. You always had you always had the right words to tell us. And you were always ständig gewesen as I, Tati. You're always mechazak us. We tried so hard, Tati, to be mechabed you. We tried to help you. We tried. Sometimes we failed. We tried. But we tried. We asked Mechila, Tati. We asked Mechila for what we should have done, what we could have done, what we did do, and what we didn't do. We asked Mechila, Abrachmanis, please. Tati, jetzt kannst auch kein Geist auf werden bei Greece. Tati, Mommy's coming to meet you. Your parents are coming to meet you. Tati, your Schwiegereltern that you never met are coming to meet you. Tante Mime Feige, Vetter Isaac, your brother Ari, your brother Yosef Zanavek and Krieg, your brother Moshe that was nifter when he was younger. They're all coming to meet you. And now, Tati, you're going to the Kisei HaKavod. I said by Mami that Mami always knew what was going on, even if we didn't say. But as much as Mami knew, Tati knew much more what was going on. And now, Tati, you really know what's going on. Tati, go to the Kisei HaKavod, so sich beten, like the last kufa has Almo gesagt wegen Mashiach. I bait for the Mashiach. Please bait for the Yeshuas. Be pile Yeshuas for the Mishpacha, for Klal Yisrael and the Kehillah Kedosha. Bila Hamal Veslanetzach Umacha Hashem Alekim Tima Mial Kol Panim.
David Neuman.
I'm pretty certain that Zaidi would have wanted everybody to remember him as a Pashut Yid. But in reality, he was anything but that. He was so regal, yet so humble, so quiet with his words, and so loud with his accomplishments. He knew when to speak, and he knew when not to speak. And through his actions, he showed us what it meant to be an Eved Hashem. When I was a young child, I noticed that one of the clocks in his house was very fast. And I told him that the clock was so fast, and he told me that the clock was set that way intentionally. He said that if I leave the house right now, the time on that clock is the time that I'm going to get to shul. When I got engaged, I was asking him about what our minhagim were, and he was hesitant to tell me. He didn't want to tell me what to do and what not to do. And he said that all the minhagim are right, and they all have a source. But I pressed him, and I said, I need to know what our specific minhagim are. And he looked at me, and he said, our minhag is to do what the other side wants to do. When I was younger, he told me the story that during the war that he was working in the field, and somebody came up to him, and he mentioned that there's somebody waiting for him inside the barracks with a loaf of bread. He wants to trade him the loaf of bread for the workman's gloves that he owned. And he told me he went to the barracks and he put his hand on the door. He's about to go inside, and he remembered he has to say Natilas Yadayim. And then a bomb exploded on the building and everybody inside was killed. And we always took away from that remembering to make a bracha for Natilas Yadayim, that's what saved his life. Zaidi told me the story that when they took him to go into a forced labor camp, he knew that there was a good chance he wasn't going to see his parents again. So he approached his father, and his father stuck out his hand, and he shook his hand, and he said, Zaid Matzliach. And that was the last time he saw his father. A little over a week ago, I had my last conversation with Zaidi. He was coherent. We traded some pleasantries. He asked me about the family, and he was so sick and frail, and his words were so weak, but he cared so much for his family. And he asked me about the young couple. Chani and Shani were both on his mind, even though he was so sick. He asked me about how Yehuda was doing in yeshiva. He asked me about Aaron. He even asked me about how Aaron's side businesses were going. And he asked me about the little ones and how Huri's managing. And I want the mishpacha to know that it wasn't just my family. He really loved everybody so much. So Zaidi, as he entered the Olam HaEmes, he reunited with Bobby and all of the Kadosh Berkowitz. The only thing I can say to you is Zay Matzliach. On behalf of my family, I'd like to ask Zaidi for mechila for anything we might have done to upset you, or for perhaps not giving you the covet you so deserved. Bila hamavas lanitzach u'mocha Hashem elakim tima me'al kol panim.
Yitzchak Yaakov Neuman.
There are almost 40 of us who can call you Zaidi. Baruch Shezachenu. From the ashes of Europe, you and Bobby embarked on a journey, a difficult one with fierce determination, a ferocious tenacity, and plenty of siyata d'shmaya. You raised 5 boys with all your koyach. When we arrived, your grandchildren, we were your bonus check, and you cherished us as such, never raising your voice at us, except for the time when I flooded the toilet at 6 years old and you had to stop the raining in the kitchen. You helped point us in the right direction with tons of love. Here are some of the memories that we have. Berkeley Road, the game of endless mirrors with the 2 doors, taking us home from shul for Shabbos lunch, playing golf in the backyard, my brother David testing the dog next door, saying Kedusha with you at shul, and trying to teach you to say Baruch instead of Burich, going under your talis on Yontiv, and unlike my tati who didn't let me peek out, you let us peek out a little bit. In third grade, I memorized 2 new numbers, 14459 and 3817929. The backyard was huge, but not nearly large enough for all of Bobby's hastas. There were simchas galore, sheva brachas, etc. Pictures, chasanim mesibas. Am I big enough to sit at the adult table yet? Guests from countries I couldn't even pronounce. Then came great-grandchildren. You never considered yourself worthy of such bracha, but you were so grateful to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You and my Shani together discovered a new species growing from the ground called hamburger grass. And my 4-year-old twins were just as amazed by the toys that disappeared under your knee as I was when I was 4 years old. The 10-15 years of my Friday afternoon visits will stay with me forever. Bobby schmoozing, and you pushing me out, convinced that I had so many more important things to do 3 hours before Shabbos. Basking in your presence was the most important thing that I had to do Erev Shabbos. Years of Sunday night learning, followed by stories of Europe and cake. You're a man of few words. You taught us to measure our words by example, but a man of many, many actions. And more ma'atva se arbe, siyog l'chochma shtika. That's what we all saw. And like Avram Avinu, whose name you carry, you influenced anyone you related with in a quiet, humble, dignified manner. You could relate to the most downtrodden and offer them words of chizuk. Men like Zaidi are unique. If I bruise a finger, someone has to take out the garbage for the next month. When you lost a finger, you didn't even tell Bobby because it was more important to you to spare her the aggravation for a few more days. After open heart surgery, already a zoken, I spent a lot of time with Zaidi in the hospital. And there I learned some of my most important life lessons. The one that stays with me and will stay with me forever is the one time I thought I heard you groan. And I said, Yoi Zaidi, Nebuch, you must be in so much pain. That moment you sat up in your hospital bed and you stared me down and said, number one, I'm not a Nebuch. Number two, I'm not in so much pain. There's 1 million people in this world that have it worse than me, that would do anything to be in my shoes right now. My tati displayed incredible kibbud ava'im to you and Bobby. Yet he never saw you fulfill that mitzvah because you didn't have parents. That speaks volumes about my tati. It speaks volumes of you, Zaidi, to be able to teach a mitzvah without being able to demonstrate by example. If we, your proud Einuklach, each commit to raising an army of Ma'aminim, Loimdei Torah, Shomrei Mitzvahs, like you, Zaidi, did, then your army will continue to grow exponentially from the ashes. 2 weeks ago, my son Yehuda called Zaidi from yeshiva, like he does almost every week, and Zaidi mentioned, if I don't speak to you before Rosh Hashanah, I have a ksiva v'chsima taiva. And Yehuda wondered, of course I'm going to talk to you. I call you every week. Zaidi, your legacy will live forever through your children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren. And as your neshama ascends to its proper place, please be a melis yosher for us all. Be lam of us lo netzach, u'malcha Hashem l'kim dima me'al kol panim.
Try and keep this short and sweet. I know that the hour is late and that Zaidi would not want to be matriach anybody, especially on an Erev Yom Tov and on a Motzei Shabbos with a lot to do to get ready for Rosh Hashanah. Looking at today's Sedra, I found 3 psukim that I think are very apropos and explain who my Zaidi was. It says in the pasuk, "Atem yitzavim kulchem lifnei Hashem lekechem, v'sheichem, shiftechem, ziknechem, v'shoitrechem, kol isha Yisrael." Zaidi, you were nifter on an Erev Shabbos, which that in itself is a big schlis. But you were also nifter in this week's Sedra, where Kadosh Baruch Hu is calling the Gibari Yisrael to be able to go up to the Kisei HaKavod and daven for Klal Yisrael. I think one of the psukim in today's Sedra that epitomizes who my grandfather was says in the pasuk, I'm not sure if it's Ashrecha or Ashreini. Ashreini mitzav chayim la'avas Hashem lekecha lelechas b'drachav v'lishmar mitzvaysav v'chukaisav mishpatav v'chayisa v'ribais v'rachticha Hashem lekecha v'eretz asher ata ba Hashem l'rishta. I think that in itself epitomizes the life of my grandfather. Zaidi, you were a man of short words, of measured words. Yet the words that you said, not just to myself, but to the family, was one that we will cherish forever. As was mentioned before, when Zaidi had open heart surgery, I remember he was just coming out of the anesthesia, driving down to the hospital, and I get a phone call. Your grandfather wants to see you. Thinking to myself, I'm dirty, I'm coming straight from work. What am I going to come to? And I get there and they say, Shmuley, sir. And Zaidi looks at me and he says, I want to give you Musser. And my uncle, Binyamin says, Tata, you want us to leave the room? And he's like, no, you can stay. He said, I'm very proud of the fact that you went into the balacha that I went into. But, and he said this very measured, you have to be a mensch. Zaidi, I'm asking you, Mechila, right now, if I did not fulfill that, to all the grandkids, to the Eineklach and to the Or Eineklach, I can tell you, the Zaidi, you were always on Zaidi and Bobby's mind. We should take away with us the memories, but more importantly, we should take the Messiah with us and never forget where we stem from. I have more to say, but I know that the hour is late. On behalf of my parents and on my siblings, Zaidi, we want to ask you, Mechila, if we were never mechabed you enough, or if we were mezalzel in our covet for you, and for Babi Allah Shalom, and on behalf of my parents and on my family, we want to thank Uncle Maish and Tante Zahava in public for going way beyond the call of duty to take care of Zaidi in the past few years, more importantly, in the past few weeks and the past few days. Bila Hashem lamavos lametzach hamocha Hashem lakim dima me'al kopan. Rabbi Neuman.
Says, in Geheles Toiv Shem Mishem and Toiv, the Yom HaMavos Miyom Hivoldai. Toiv Shem Mishem and Toiv. A good name, a name is more better than Shem and Toiv, than good oil. How is a Shem better than Shem and Toiv? What is it better? Why is it compared to shemen? Shemen is an item that when you put it with other liquids, it floats above. Somebody with a shem tov is an individual that goes above other people. They have a life that represents ideals and values that are above other people. father, Alav Shalom, was a Toiv Shem, Shem Toiv. But more than what it means from Shem and Toiv is different. Why is it Toiv? Why is it better? Oil, when it's mixed together with other liquids, if the liquids are aromatic and something that's very good, so the shemen, as it rises, carries that goodness with it. But if the wine or whatever liquid is with has a reach ra to it, so the shemen acquires the reach ra. Toiv shem, shemen toiv. A shem is better than shemen toiv because it rises and it doesn't have anything to do with what is around them. My father, Alav Shalom, was somebody that rised above others, and although he was together with other elements in other situations, he rised above it without any influence from them. He told me once, when he was here just about a few weeks, I believe, in America, after coming here after the Muhammad, and he met somebody on Shabbos that came from his area, and he noticed from a block away that he had a cigarette in his hand. And my father was astonished. He looked at him, and he looked back, and he called my father by his name, and he says, "Wes de sehen? In 6 Monaten wirst du tun dieselbe Sache. You'll do the same thing in 6 months." My father told me, he said to himself, the words of the Mishnah in Idias, "Mutav li korei shaita kol yamai." Let him look at me at the Meshuggah, the greener that's here in America that didn't want to melt into it. He rised above without being influenced from others. The Medrash says, why is the Yom HaMavis better than Yom Hivoldai? It says, Vaylen gives a mashal to shtei sfinos, to 2 ships in the port. One was a ship that was going out, and one was a ship that was coming in. The ship that was going out, everybody was dancing and singing a fanfare for the ship that's going out. And the one that was coming into port with whatever it was carrying, everything was quiet, nothing going on. And there was a pikeach, and he says it's a mistake. The ship that's going out to sail, you don't know what's going to be with it. But the ship that returns safely, that's where you need to dance and sing. So too, it's better. Yom HaMavis mi Yom Hivoldai. When a person comes into this world, we don't know what is going to be. There'll be a Rasha, there'll be a Tzaddik, they'll go to the Tzad HaTov, to the Tzad HaRa. But the Yom HaMavis, when you see somebody that leaves this world, that's nifter b'shem tov, and leaves this world b'shalom, complete, that's a time when a person should be b'simcha to be able to celebrate the hatzlach of a life. And the sfina that my father, Alav Shalom, went through many turbulent times. It wasn't easy times, bein beruchnias, bein begashmias. Going through the Muhammad all the years, resettling in America. The world calls people like them as survivors. I beg to differ. They're builders. They built, and they built, and they built. They moved away all the obstacles that were in their way to build. And then they came b'shalom. What were the strengths? Whenever I learned this Mishnah in Avis, I always saw my father, Alav Shalom, in this Mishnah. How many times I heard from him, Mikol Malamdai Skalti. He would say, you can learn from anybody and everyone. The discipline that he had was Ein L'Shayir, the discipline, the control. You never saw him lose himself with a yashrus. He was definitely a sameach b'chelkai, but let me give an insight to the depth of his sameach b'chelkai. When I was but a little boy and I would walk to him It was my treat to walk to shul and back, as my older brothers were already older in yeshiva, and my younger brother wasn't ready to come to shul. And I would walk to shul with him, 15 minutes there, 15 minutes back. It was a special time. And it was a time I went with my mother, Allah Shalom, somewhere. An individual told her, he says, you know, if your husband would go into business for himself, he would be rich, instead of working for somebody else. A little boy, I hear the information. So one Shabbos I decided, I looked at him and I said, Tati, he says, why don't you work for yourself? I was a little kid. And he says, why should I want to work for myself? I said, then we'll be rich. He says, rich? We're very rich. So I said, no, we're not very rich. He says, of course we're very rich. I can keep Shabbos every week? I said, yes. He says, we, Baruch Hashem, can afford kosher food in the house? Yes. We can, Baruch Hashem, send our children to the proper Talmudei Torah to be able to learn Torah? So I says, then we're rich. We have everything that we need. So I tried again. No, Chamo. I got the same response. Till finally, I said to him, I mean the other kind of rich. But Lamaisa, he didn't budge, and this etched in my mind. Because by him, his chalik was a chalik of Avodas Hashem, to be close to the Rebbeinu Shalom. And although the Navi tells us, Al Yisal Chacham b'Chachmasai, Val Yisal Agibor b'Gvurasai, Al Yisal Asher b'Ashrei, Kim b'Zois Yishalol HaMishalol Haskel v'Yadei Oisi. So one would think that these milas aren't necessarily milas, but the Nesivis and his Pirush on Kehelis writes that when there's a Haskel v'Yadei Oisi, as I mentioned, then it's b'Zois Yishalol Mishalol, the Gvura, the Chachma, and the Ashiris is all nichlal into the Haskel v'Yadei Oisi. He lived a life of Haskel v'Yadei Oisi. It was mentioned here just a little before. I know that a few weeks ago, Baruch Hashem, we were zeicha to make a chasana. And in that week, my father Shalom was really zeicha to something very special that he never had in a week in his life, to be able to dance by an Ir Einikul's chasana, to be zeicha to an Ir Einikul being born, and then to dance at an Einikul's chasana. So on Erev Shabbos, when I called him to speak to him, I said, Tati, this must have been such a special week, such molei simcha. And his response was molei simcha, but we still didn't reach the simcha of Mashiach coming. I'd gelept with Mashiach. When I grew up, I didn't realize how real it was, even though he said it. Not till a couple of years ago, he told me, I'm starting to think that maybe I won't see Mashiach. That's when I started to realize that maybe he really means it all these years. I once asked him, because it was always an issue. My mother, Allah Shalom, had a very colorful personality and was able to talk and had shaykhs with many, many people. And she had many friends from the Sheris HaPleita that would come and try to push her, you have to go to Yom HaShoah Memorial. How could you not go to all the Kedoshim? It's a disgrace to them that you're not machshav them. And she would answer him like she would answer on a lot of things. My husband says, we don't go, so we don't go. So I asked my mother, Allah Shalom, once, and what is the reason Tati said that you don't go? He said, very simple. If the G'daylim felt it was important, they would have instituted. And if they didn't institute it, then we don't go. There's no such thing. So I asked him once. I wanted to hear, what did he thought? I said, Tati, I heard you said this. What do you think the reason is the G'daylim didn't institute a special day for Churban Europe? He says, a davar pashut by me, because Mashiach's coming tomorrow. Why should we institute something that's not going to last for very long? Gelept mit Mashiach, gelept with Haskel v'Yadaya Oisi. Before I conclude, although it was mentioned before, I feel that I would like on my own as well. I would like to thank all the doctors and the individuals that were very helpful to him. And as my brother Moshe said, he was always very proud when I would come, and he says, you know, I have a schus. I daven with my doctors together. They're all there. It was something that was very meaningful to him. I need to thank the Rabbonim of the community and the members of the Kehillah that came and spent time. The last couple of years were more difficult, obvious, with my mother, Allah Shalom, not being here. And gave a tremendous chizuk to him, much more than any of you would ever imagine. And I would hear it from him when he would tell me who visited him. It meant so much. And then, of course, being that I live away, I owe a big debt of Hakaras Atayv to my brothers that live here in Cleveland that were metapel with many issues, and Befrat to my brother Moshe, my sister-in-law Zahavat. There's no words to express how indebted we are to what you were able to do successfully to be helpful to them. As we come to now the end, the Yom HaMavis, and soon to be the Yom HaKfura, and the Sfina is coming back into port. The Sfina is coming back to port. There are people waiting at the port for him. I'm sure Barasham, my mother, Allah Shalom, they were partners together in every endeavor that they accomplished. Shava b'shava. The respect, the interest of the welfare from one to the other is lahafli, above and beyond. When my mother, Allah Shalom, was sick and we would come visit for Shabbos, one of the opening lines that my father, Allah Shalom, would tell me is, I want you to know if mommy needs something, then I'm not going to be there for you. She comes first. And that's exactly the way they live to each other. So with such a commitment, she'll be there. His father and mother, Aleichem Shalom, Hashem Yimkom Damam, who were so dedicated to the Yiddishkeit of their children, the Emunah Pshuta, the Yesodus of Hashkafa that was in their blood, that carried over, that came from them. My father, Allah Shalom, told me that when he went to work camps, and he went back home on his way to work camp, his mother, Allah Shalom, Hashem Yimkom Dama, said to her, he says, be careful, how are you going to manage with kashrus and Shabbos? She wasn't worried about his gashmistika welfare. She wasn't worried about how he's going to survive. He was worried about kashrus and Shabbos. Haskil v'yaday oisi was in their blood. We asked Mechila, in case we didn't properly. He never demanded, but he had high standards, that he was teveya from himself. And I don't think that I speak for myself, lived up to the standards that he would be teveya of himself. So we asked Mechila for anything that we didn't do appropriately, and we asked that he should go and be a Meilitz Yosher. A Meilitz Yosher for the Mishpacha, certainly. A Meilitz Yosher for the Kehila that he lived in and he loved. He had a special feeling for the Kehila as a Rabbim. He never felt himself as a Yachid. He always lived like a Rabbim. He was somebody that represented the Rabbim. Meilitz Yosher for them, and be a Meilitz for Klal Yisrael. For somebody that waited all these years for Mashiach and wasn't Zoichet to be able to see Mashiach come. Had a recht to gain some Eibishter, and betting that this year should be the year the Shnas Hagula v'Yeshua. How happy he would be begins a Meraimim that Mashiach comes sooner. Tein Nishmasei Tzur B'Tzur Chaim.
Please rise for the Askara.
El Molei Rachamim Shoichein Bamroimim Hamtzei Menucha Nechoina Al Kanfei Ashchina B'malois Kedoshim Utiyayirim Kizero Kiyamasirim Es Nishmas Avram Elozo Ben David Babu Shekulon Mispal Dimadaskoras Nishmosoi Bigane Yiden Tiye Menuchosoi Lochein Balorachamim Yastireyu b'seise knafav li'olamim V'yitzroi b'tzor ha'chaim es nishmosoi Adonai hu nachlosoi V'yonuach b'sholom al mishkovoi V'noimar Amen. All 5 sons will be heading to Eretz Yisrael with the niftar. Shiva will not begin until the family returns, sometime Thursday afternoon. Details will be forthcoming. The family also requests that only family members carry the Aron.